Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Monday, December 9th, 2024. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. That's the mantra. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube in the live chat. Thank you for being here. I don't think we have a moderator today. Christine isn't here. I don't think Ronnie's here today. She hasn't made it. So y'all behave in that live chat. And thank you for everybody for being here. Let's dive into it, my friends. It is the end of 2024. And we are, for all intents and purposes, 4 full years into the greatest crime against humanity, the human family, our DNA, our biology, our psyche, you name it. And we're at a point where literally no justice has been served, none whatsoever. The entire operation, everything before that pales in comparison. And I just pointed out the biggest one of them, which was the scam and you know what I'm talking about, the Beetlejuice. And to the best of my knowledge, nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been convicted. Nobody has been put out of their misery. You know, whatever they do these days, lethal injections, I don't care, hang them, whatever. Whatever they choose. And I'm talking about a proper system where somebody is charged. There's a trial. There is a jury. There is a verdict. And there is an execution. None of that has happened. We are looking at a $100 and something billion per year industry when it comes to child sex trafficking. That is happening. And to the best of my knowledge, the biggest thing that we have seen was a scam trial against Ghislaine Maxwell with no clients, with no financiers, with no cartels present. A scam trial that was overshadowed by a bigger scam trial, if you believe it or not. Johnny Depp and his wife, the greatest scam bullshit in history. And on the list goes. You want to talk about food poisoning, geoengineering, poisoning our water in the air? You want to talk about all the other poisons that are in the medicine? You want to talk about whatever. We could go on and on and on and on the list, but I want to focus on 2 subjects here that are intrinsically connected and that have had the biggest effect. All the others have had huge effects, but the biggest effects on the soul, on the psyche, on the spirit of humans, and on the body, which is a millennia-old practice of trafficking, of traumatizing children from a very young age, abusing them, using them to the worst you could possibly imagine. And of course, the scam over the last 4 years, the C19 thing. And everything is moving forward. No justice has been served, which is, and we're going to get into this today, which is a big reason or a contributor to a looming worldwide kinetic conflict, the kinetic part of World War III. This is, you can write the playbook on this. When all injustices remain unjust, when nothing happens, not even the appearance of justice, not even scapegoats. Back in the day, at the Nuremberg trials, you had at least scapegoats, right? You had those few people, 22 or whatever, that were put on a stand and that were convicted and executed. So for all intents and purposes, and I'm not trying to rehash false history here, but for all intents and purposes, in the narrative of the time, you at least had the appearance of justice. There is none here. Over the last years, they have started calling for amnesty. They're starting to flip-flop these people. There's talk of preemptive pardons by the current administration, by the man playing Joe Biden, you know, and they've been publicly discussing that people like Fauci and other prominent figures should receive preemptive pardons. They say they didn't do anything wrong, but this next administration might do something. Bullshit. They won't do a thing. There will be maybe at best a few scapegoats. They won't do a thing. They won't touch anyone. There will be no trials. There'll be none of that. They're all on the same team. Yes, this is a little bit of a different flavor. And don't get me wrong, there'll be some good things. Sure, there'll be some cool things for people, but they're all on the same team. There will be no justice. What happens when there is no justice? What happens when people look away for too long? Well, let me first start by the excuses that I keep hearing by by a pseudo-spiritual interpretation. Often, I call this New Age spiritual bypassing. Some of the things people say, why we shouldn't do anything, why this is all okay, why nobody should, don't worry about it. Let's look at this first. Karma will handle it. And the argument is justice is unnecessary because universal laws of karma will ensure everyone reaps what they sow. The flaw here is this abdicates human responsibility and allows harmful actions to persist unchecked. Okay, so you can have, if you want to be on the karmic wheel and you want to be in the reincarnation cycle, well, be my guest. But to say that, oh, you just don't worry about it, eventually they'll get, yeah, sure, eventually they'll get it. But sometimes karma comes in the form of good old-fashioned justice. That too sometimes happens. Focus on love and light. The argument here is dwelling on negativity lowers vibrations. Focusing on positivity creates a better reality. The flaw, this ignores the necessity of confronting darkness to facilitate true healing and growth. You cannot, my friends, under no circumstances, no matter how much pseudo-spiritual bullshit people babble, there is no way that someone can transcend whatever they have going on and just bypass their healing, bypass the darkness, bypass the shadows, and just go straight for feeling good forever and forevermore. That just does not work. It does not work. Without healing, there is no freedom, no liberation. It is partially a physical thing. Trauma manifests physically in these bodies. And if there's too much trauma, you can't even transcend it in a meditative state. You don't get there. So just wanted to say that quickly, that all these, pseudo-spiritual arguments are completely flawed. Then you have everything happens for a reason. The argument here, atrocities are part of a divine plan or lessons for humanity. So interference isn't required. The flaw is this fatalistic view dismisses accountability and undermines moral agency. So to say that, oh, well, this is part of the big plan, you're you're absolutely putting yourself in the position of a victim, putting yourself in a position of a being that has no will, that has no morals, that is just a pawn in the game. Of course, an illusion. We talk a lot about the matrix, the if you will, constructed reality here. And the argument is injustice and suffering are part of the material illusion, which they are, by the way, the Maya or the matrix, and don't warrant action in the real spiritual realm. Flaw, this detaches spirituality from tangible experience, fostering apathy. Now, listen to me here. This only works in the abstract. This only works in theory. You know, when a father walks down the street with their young child, 3, 4 years old, on their hand, and somebody tries to attack that child, that's somebody that usually doesn't make it. That somebody usually does not make it. And if that is the case, the father does absolutely the right thing. You have to neutralize the threat as it comes to you. I'm not going out. You're not seeking revenge. You're not trying to put offensive violence on people, but to not stand in the love for your child, stand in the love for what is right, and let those things just happen to you or your child. That is about the worst kind of weakness that there is. So, you know, all these things absolutely fly to me in the face of what true spirituality is. We create our own reality. It's another one that New Agers often say. Victims, and the argument is that victims have attracted their suffering through their thoughts or past life karma. The flaw here is this victim blaming narrative trivializes systemic oppression and atrocities, but not just that. It also completely takes out of the account that we live in a reincarnational, recycling world where people are deceived and tricked. Not that they don't ultimately have free will, but deceived and tricked into this, into this, dark energy production world here, which it is a dark energy production world. That's the main focal point here, is to produce sort of a survival suffering energy for this realm. Justice is ego driven. It's often what I heard. The desire for justice stems from ego, and true spirituality requires transcending such desires. The flaw here is this misunderstands justice as a purely selfish endeavor, ignoring its role in collective harmony, which is what so often people don't understand. To serve justice is to seek to bring things back into a state of balance. Where an injustice has been done, you do not seek revenge. It's not about revenge. It's not about making those people suffer. It's about bringing it back into balance. There has to be an energetic exchange. If you take something from someone, in the worst case, you take their life, there has to be some sort of an energetic exchange. People in earlier times that had more connection to true inner wisdom knew that, and they were pretty good at making that balance happen. You had councils that would properly look at something that had transpired, and then usually councils were much about how can we facilitate, what are the best options that we can bring here that will facilitate healing for both victim and perpetrator, right? So oftentimes, for example, one of the strategies in tribal or in clan councils among the Indians here in the United States was that if, for example, a man had killed another man that had a family, and it wasn't in a war, or it was a killing, it was a murder, right? A murder is what I'm talking about. Then one of the ways that uh, the murderer was punished, if you will, was that he had to actually live with that the victim's family and take care of his wife and take care of the entire clan. That was sort of one of the first ways to begin facilitating that harmony. Now that is an unthinkable thing in today's world because of the way that society has sort of developed since. But what I'm saying is that this black or white thinking that justice is a form of just revenge is absolutely primitive. Justice is about seeking to create harmony in an unbalanced situation again. Ultimately doesn't mean that some suffering on the part of perpetrators isn't involved. That usually takes place and should take place, right? Then there's the judgment lowers consciousness. Judging perpetrators lowers one's spiritual frequency, and forgiveness is the only path forward. Forgiveness does not preclude justice. That's the flaw here. Both can coexist as part of a healing process. But here's also one thing that I will say, especially with regard to what we're seeing, for example, for the campaign from the last 4 years. This one, no one's freaking asking for forgiveness. No one is admitting to their mistakes. No, none of the people that brought this and unleashed this upon the human family, they're still pushing it. There's no remorse. There's no repentance. There is no asking for forgiveness. There's none of that. And sure, you can silently forgive someone without them asking for it. That's more for you than it is for them. But just to say there is none of that, you can't have a sort of a redemption before repentance. Nobody can redeem themselves without first acknowledging and feeling the pain of their own wrong behavior, of their own injustice that they have committed unto others. They have to first feel it. They have to feel the pain of it. Otherwise, they will never understand what they did wrong. And then they can repent. Repentance meaning change their hearts and their minds, and then justice can happen. But not just with some, new age babble. Ascension will fix everything. That's my buy. That one takes the cake, probably. It's when people say humanity is on the brink of a spiritual awakening. Yes, it is. And justice will naturally follow as vibration rises. This passive approach postpones actions in the present, allowing harm to continue, which is, by the way, one of the main big bullshit arguments. It's why people don't do anything, because they say the white hats will fix it, which are part of the Ascensions. The secret group that is fighting the cabal will fix it, or we'll just go into 5D and that will all fix itself, right? Those are sort of the, simplified arguments. Or non-resistance is key, where resistance to injustice only perpetuates conflict. Spiritual growth comes through surrender. The flaw here is that this misapplies spiritual teachings meant for inner transformation, not societal issues. What non-resistance means is something that happens inside of you. It's like saying to a woman that is being attacked by someone, just don't resist. Bullshit. What you say to the woman is, do everything you can to neutralize the threat. Kill the motherfucker if you have to, if you're being attacked, right? You're not saying just don't resist. I mean, Jesus. So these are some of the new age crap. Sorry that I'm saying that I'm this obvious, but this sort of is, it's insulting to true spirit and insulting to intelligence to think and act in these ways. But we have a time where in most nations there is enough of a movement of truth that enough people now know what has really transpired, at least in the last 4 years, and they're starting to begin to see what has transpired for much, much longer than that. They're starting to see all the atrocities committed against the human family. And there is a section of that group that is 100% committed to initiating justice, right? And right now, what we have as a collective is a flawed and for the most part broken justice system that does not serve the human family. It serves a corporate system, the legal system, the dead system, the corporations, right? It serves that. It's a different, it's a different kind of law. It's a dead law. But there is also the other thing which people know as natural law or common law, which is what most people intuitively feel. If there is an injustice, they feel the natural and common laws which are there to take care of the injustice. And that is what people are starting to gravitate towards. And I believe there is a way to sort of institutionalize this again and to bring it back into a form. It needs to be in a form and in a forum. So the worst thing that could happen is that violent mobs run around and take start taking care of things themselves, because you will, without a doubt, get a lot of innocents or non-participants that are in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you will create incredible chaos and probably commit injustices yourself without even wanting to. But that is exactly the danger that all of this has sort of brought about. Now, that is an explanation as to why you see this this ramping up in warfare, because this is what always happens when injustices become so huge and are not addressed, when all grievances are not heard, when the economic system begins to collapse as it was designed to do. Then what do? They go to war, because then people forget about all of that and they just focus on what's going on at war, and then it's basically a reset. So we're in this situation, and I want to show you something, and you might understand this very quickly. What happens when we look away? Trauma, prolonged exposure to injustice, to mass murder, to genocides, to censorship, and all the stuff that's been going on. It leads to collective and individual PTSD, anxiety, and depression. So what people are seeing is that, and I'm just focusing on this 4-year period since 2020 because it's so visible. Much has happened before that, by the way, but this has already led to PTSD, anxiety, and depression in many people. It's just the effects of what has happened. But then there is the moral and the philosophical and the spiritual consequences of nobody's being held accountable. Not just that, these people are in powerful positions. They remain to be powerful. They remain to make a shit ton of money, and they remain to push these things onto others. It's insane. Also, a desensitization. Repeated exposure dulls emotional responses, reducing empathy. Right? This is what happens when over and over again you're being shown atrocities and crimes, but you're never being shown that anything is being done about it. You're never being shown the justice, the rebalancing, and later a reconciliation. As a matter of fact, Bobby Kennedy Jr., before he joined the Trump team, he talked about the Reconciliation Project, right? Which I thought was classic sort of cult speak for we're not gonna we're not gonna prosecute anyone. We were all in the dark, right? I mean, he was one of the vocal people that, in his own words, talked about the atrocities during the COVID years, but he never went all the way. And then he totally flipped his script and said, well, reconciliation, we're going to have to look what went wrong. We're going to have to have better studies. And come on. What needs to happen is criminals need to be arrested and charged and tried. And the verdict needs to be executed. That's what needs to happen. That's so clear. That's so, it can happen in the right manner. It can happen in the right way. You can do it with the right heart and the right approach, but it still needs to happen. To this day, it is December 9th, 2024. And to this day, this is being pushed out. And the medical personnel that is pushing this out, that is still doing it, they know exactly about everything. They know it. Nobody now does not know that that doesn't exist anymore. You can't be that blind. You can't be that oblivious, but they're still doing it. They're still making money off of it. Nurses, doctors, they're still administering stuff. They all need to be arrested and charged. That's just how it is. They need to go. And that's your family members. That's my family members. That's everyone's family members. I don't care. Once you know that you are committing a crime, if you're, I will give everyone the benefit of the doubt in the beginning, maybe for a little bit, but by now everybody knows. If you know and you still do it, well, then that's your karma. That's on you. You got to suffer those consequences. And you got to frankly be removed because you're a danger. right? And this is another thing. It is not enough to change regulations. It is not enough to change and prohibit the use of fluoride, or the use of these things here, or the use of chemicals in the air and in the sky and all that crap that is knowingly and willingly and purposefully killing people. No, that's not enough. The people who've been doing it and who've been knowing it need to be held accountable. Justice is important. It brings things back into balance. What else happens? There's a learned helplessness. This is what we see in many people. They feel powerless, and it fosters apathy and inaction because they go, so many have died, so many are suffering, so many are losing everything, and nothing happens. It makes people feel incredibly small, and like none of what they do matters, and none of what they say matters, and the truth doesn't matter, frankly. And that's exactly the point. There's an erosion of values. Are you noticing this? Societal norms degrade as atrocities become normalized. You know, um, as mass violence against the people, as mass conflicts, and as draconian measures become more normalized, uh, there is an erosion within people. They lose their sense of right and wrong, and it is a human reaction. It's not rocket science. Of course, a deep mistrust in institutions, media, and leadership also emerges, right? This is what we've seen over the last years. And a fragmentation. Communities fracture along ideological, cultural, or tribal lines. Just look at our society. We are now fragmentized into smaller and smaller tribes, and even within, for example, the LGBTQ and all the letters that they have community, you have these small little tribes within it, and these little clans that do their own thing, and they're at odds with the other parts, and you have a million little boxes that people now live in. And you have, of course, a deep divide between the perceived left and the right, for example, almost in the entire West. I don't know about the other countries, but almost in the entire West, there's a fragmentation into these two camps. And those who have caused that are not being held accountable. These are also effects. Authoritarianism. A vacuum of justice may lead to oppressive systems or chaotic uprisings, right? A loss of societal cohesion. People prioritize survival over collective well-being. And cynicism. Idealism gives way to pessimism, stifling innovation and progress, if you could call, innovation and progress in today's terms. But it also it puts people in a very frozen position. They can't see forward. They don't know how to deal with everything that's happened. And believe it or not, but justice is a part of healing. This is what a lot of people don't understand. That justice is a part of healing. And Christine, for example, and we both have worked actually with a lot of people that have experienced severe sexual abuse, childhood abuse, just horrible things, which unfortunately is the majority of the population, not the minority, by the way, the majority. And in their healing process, you as a facilitator of a healing technique, or as a coach, you have no direct influence over justice, right? What you can facilitate is a healing process that addresses the traumas that were inflicted, and that begin a transmutation and a healing journey for that person. And in that, a lot of things happen, but it is only part of the journey. When there is no justice, the remainder of the healing is extremely difficult, and things remain unfinished. So justice is a part of it. And when, for example, people after 20 years, 15 years, 20 years, finally get into their healing journey after they've been abused as children, usually by family members. Unfortunately, this is sort of how it goes. When that happens, that's when they often go and press charges and finally start initiating action against their perpetrators, which is a deep and important part of the healing. When people say, "Oh, it happened so long ago," no, that first off, that person is usually still a danger to someone else, right? They're usually still out there. And in an energetic way, in a exchange way, for what that person has taken from you, something needs to be taken from them. This is not egotistic. This is energetic. So they need to give up something, if you will. It's not so much taken, but if that is, for example, their freedom in free movement because they're going to jail, then that is a part of that, right? It is, if it is remorse, for example, or if it is an authentic um, asking for forgiveness, those things can do a lot. But some form of justice usually helps. Sometimes the perpetrators are already deceived, and then the process happens solely in the invisible realm. It happens solely in the space of feelings, emotions, and forgiveness. But we as a collective, what we forgot and what we've been hoodwinked because we've been trained to behave as a subservient slave race and to be thankful when mandates are lifted that prohibit us from surviving, right? I mean, this is what happened during the freaking COVID years is they were so draconian that then everybody was just thankful when it was finally over or less of that. And they were just, oh, we can just finally go about our ways. We're going to forget about it. Same people are still in freaking charge. Same people are still running the show. We also need to see something. How is this sort of inhibiting to the awakening process? How are these ongoing atrocities? I'm not saying fix the world. Like I've been saying, I don't believe this entire system can be fixed because it is an archontic, it is an inverted consciousness system. That's what it was created to do. But at least we need to stop a certain amount of atrocities from happening so we can take a breath, so we can actually work on the inner work that we need to do and that needs to happen for people. And we're being attacked and poisoned from all sides still. Nothing has changed. There's nothing significant that has changed. There's a lot of talk about things, but electromagnetic bullshit is still being rolled out, satellites all over the place, and towers and 6G and 7G, and it's gotten more and more and more and more. They're talking about doing things and taking certain things out of the food supply, but nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. Have you seen any big child sex trafficking case unfold? Have you seen the mainstream and everyone else talking about this in any significant way? Have you seen any significant arrests? Have you seen any of that? No. So this call for amnesty, and I know, periodically when those politicians and everyone else gets a little scared, they come out and they go, we didn't know, you know, we didn't know. So, but now we know better and now we can do it differently. No, no, amnesty is not a thing. Amnesty does not exist. Amnesty is a solely a invented fictional concept that has no basis in reality. Does not exist. Does not exist. A pardon without any action that precedes that pardon, remorse, anything, resigning, acknowledging, admitting, that does not exist in the natural realm. There is no such thing that you can observe anywhere in nature or in whatever you perceive to be nature. Nothing goes unanswered. Such a thing does not exist. And by us creating a fictional process of something going unanswered and not having consequences, we're simply deluding her. We're delusional. We're telling ourselves a fairy tale. Every action is a consequence. Every action is a reaction. Energetically speaking, that is absolutely the truth. So what would happen? Well, very quickly, I'll tell you what would happen very quickly. The moment that you start having some serious public action and that people are publicly tried, people are publicly, and I know judgment is sort of a controversial topic among spiritual people, but when people are publicly judged by their peers, if you will, and when people are then also publicly executed for crimes against humanity, then a lot of shit stops very quickly. When the consequences become real, that stops very quickly. Now, that's not the entire story. That's just the first part of it. Then, a lot of facilitation of healing needs to happen, because I fully acknowledge that among the humans who are committing those atrocities, most are themselves traumatized people. Most themselves have experienced bad things, and they're usually just the gophers for a different form that doesn't even reside in the human, but they're still personally and fully responsible for what they did. We've all been traumatized to a certain degree, so that doesn't give us absolution to commit crimes. So, for me, clearly, if you are someone who is advocating for humans to wake up, if you are someone who's advocating for us to find the truth about everything, to liberate ourselves, to experience greater freedom, healing, to teach and learn how we can transcend this artificial reality, if all of that matters to you, justice needs to matter to you too. And you might not call it justice, you can call it harmony or balance. And so when things are out of harmony or balance, then we need to find a way to bring them back into it. And there are certain horrific psychopaths that's beyond help. There's nothing you can do. All you can do is lovingly protect the rest of the human family against those folks and remove them permanently, right? For some things, we have to look to creation, and we have to look to source. We have to look to the original creator to deal with that. You know, there's a saying in the military, and obviously this is sort of very it's military. It's very direct. When there was a general, and I forget which one it was, but he was asked, whether a certain terrorist that had committed God knows how many crimes, whether that can be, that person can redeem themselves or can be forgiven or whatever. And the answer was that's not his job. That's quote unquote, that's God's job. Our job is to arrange the meeting. And of course, this is somewhat humorous. There is some truth to that, but to a certain degree, I do agree. To a certain degree, I do agree. We live in a world of incredible atrocities, and the number of entities that are responsible, and the number of people that are responsible, really responsible for the planning, the execution, is not as astronomically big as you might imagine. And something would happen when those people are removed. Something would begin to happen in the right direction. I don't know how people don't see that, because they can see it in their own lives. What do you do? Like, like there's a famous Florida sheriff. I believe it's sheriff of Polk County in Florida. Could be Lee County. But I think it's Polk County in Florida. And when in the year 2020, when those those BLM riots were all over the place, and they were destroying stuff, and they were violent and whatnot, and they started to threaten to come to rural communities, right? They started to threaten to go into the suburbs and rural communities. And that sheriff came out in a press conference and said, listen, to all those who want to come into our communities and break into people's homes and harm them, I encourage my communities to be armed. And I encourage them tonight that if someone breaks into their home, to shoot them out of their home. Simple as that, right? Which I agree with that sheriff. Problem solved. You don't do that. And we kind of understand that on an individual level. We understand that when someone wants to bring harm directly to us or wants to attack us, we fight back. We do what we need to neutralize that threat. But on a bigger level, on a collective level, we have lost that. We've lost that, and I don't know why, but we've lost it, and we're not using it any longer, and we're suffering the consequences psychologically, physically, spiritually. There needs to be a strength that's back in us, and we need to have some freaking fight in us again, right? That to me is also practical spirituality. It's the spiritual warrior in us, and that too is incredibly important. So, um, if you're looking to this new wave that is going through some countries in the world that have had elections, if you're looking to these new leaders and new people, let's see if they will be willing to even talk about this subject, justice, and if they will be willing to own up to their own mistakes and their participation in some of the unjust things that have been done to the human family and the genocides and whatnot. Um, I think, for example, that one of the biggest, most important subjects of our time is, of course, this one, but it's also human and child sex trafficking specifically. It is said that this business is bigger than illegal arms and illegal drugs. So it has been often said by sort of insiders that this is the biggest illegal business in the world. And if it can happen to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars a year, do you think that some very high level people are absolutely involved in it and making sure that it stays out of the public's perception? To a certain degree, they have been successful. Now there's whole online communities who are of course paying attention, but to a certain degree they've been very successful, and to make sure that that money keeps flowing. Tell me, should not every human child or child sex trafficker be tried and executed? Should not every uh, financial investor in this business be tried and executed? Should not every client who is abusing these children be tried and executed? When this starts to happen and this becomes a campaign, wherever it is proven beyond the shadow of a doubt, and this starts to happen publicly, oh, we're going to have a very quick change. We're going to have a very quick change. And I'm not above such solutions whatsoever. I'm not above justice, and I don't think it's unspiritual. I have no problem with that. I'm a full-on advocate. I think for this particular crime, every country needs to reinstate the death penalty. That's my personal opinion. For this particular crime, every country needs to have it back and needs to use it publicly. That's where I stand. And I think a lot of things would become much clearer, much quicker. And then, of course, hand in hand with that goes the healing. Hand in hand goes with that the uh, the truth and a truth campaign and a healing campaign, because that is only the beginning. That's not the solution. That's just the beginning. But that beginning is important, and it does need to happen. All right, my friends. You know, be observant, pay attention, and if you have a level of influence, if you are influential in whatever position where you are, demand it too. Demand it too. I think it's important that we start speaking about this more openly again, start bringing it up more again, because they think they can see this decade through without any big justice being served on anyone. That was the promise that the perpetrators received by the powers that want to be. The people in the back said to the people in the front, the names that you know and the names that you not know, whether that's the Bill Gateses or the Faucis or your Secretary of Health and all the other scientists and doctors, for example, when we're talking about this story here, um, those people have been promised that they will never be persecuted and prosecuted. They've been promised that the big systemic changes in the world would overshadow any need for justice in this department. And I say, no, no, no. We're not going to let it fly. No amnesty, full on justice for everyone involved. All right, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us, my fellow. Here you go. Free spirits. It's one of my favorite shirts that Christine designed, by the way. And thank you for your support. You know, you help us. You help us by, for example, choosing to give someone a Christmas gift of a T-shirt from the Inspired Merch Store. We really appreciate it. It helps our team. And also, you know, I want to thank all you beautiful viewers who share our videos and spark discussions. I was invited today to speak on a panel this morning. It was evening in India, but morning for me when I spoke on his panel on AI, the New Earth Summit in India. And Frank Jacob was with me, and Dr. Paula, who's a long-term viewer who facilitated this. And I just want to let you all know how much we appreciate you and how much we see you as an active participant, as a co-creator in all of this, that we all are it. It's not us and it's all of us. And we all need to find our part in it and do it and fulfill it, right? And so I just want to thank you for that, for being such an incredible, beautiful, amazing, inspiring audience and family, extended family to Christine and I. The beautiful thing is that all our interview guests are so aware of that. They're actually, the thing that we hear most often is congratulations on creating such a beautiful community. You know, they're paying attention to the comments, they're watching, and they are aware that we together, all of us, we're a movement. We're not just some podcast and people watching. We're a movement, man. We're doing this together. We're actually moving consciousness. We're moving real life action. We're actually moving things together, and we can only do it together. So, you know, this wouldn't happen without you all. So thank you for that. Christine and I and our entire team, we love you. We appreciate you. And we'll be back with you again very, very soon.
And right now, you could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.